I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
And this is...
The Extreme Underground.
NAGELFAR Seelenland. What's Seelenland? It means, can you go to...
it means, right here. Land of Souls.
Land of Souls. Whoa, that's
yeah,
nice.
I know.
You said it was from the Extreme Underground. There's multiple ways to get your song reviewed. Dear listener. My favorite, which is the one that happened here, is the community option. $1 to gate gets you in at Patreon. The reason we do Patreon is because every time we do a song, we do it all the way through.
Yep.
You will notice, no disrespect to the other reaction channels, they are awesome. You should watch them, but you'll notice they cut them up, you know, and sometimes people go, why do you guys cut them up? The reason they cut them up is because if you do that, you can monetize your video. You probably saw some horrible ad from Joe Biden or Donald Trump before you were able to log into this beautiful video, dear listener. And so usually what ends up happening is that YouTube takes a cut and then you get a cut. But what happens when you listen to a song all the way through without breaks, the cut that you were going to get, you get this nice little nifty note that you're probably seeing it right now from the record label that says, we're taking all your ad revenue, which is okay. Because the way that we all set that is through Patreon, right? So $1 to gate gets you in. We figure, hey, if 10% of our populace believes in what we're doing, they give $1 a month and we'll be okay. And so one of us, I won't mention who, came up with a brilliant idea of creating alliances where people could pool their points together and influence what songs get reviewed.
I think the alliances are great. It's a great thing. I was going to say institution, but I don't like the word institution. I think it's a great thing, and it's a fun way to meet people and have conversations and do different stuff and hang out together and stuff online. And some of them meet up like outside of online. I, however, though, am the type of person that I like on Amazon the buy now slide. That's very convenient for me. You'd think that you'd think there'd be packages arriving all the time for me, but I'm not. I really like the slide, the fast, and so we have a fast option for people like me, and so that option it's the $125 tier, and it's where you slide that button basically, and you can either do this on Patreon or you can do it on PayPal. Links are in the description, and then your song gets bumped right to our shortlist, and there you don't work with a team or anything, it's you and you alone. Get to decide the fate of the channel's next reaction. But
this is my favorite option.
Yeah, his favorite is the alliances. My favorite is
honestly,
the fast one.
I appreciate the 125s and the 75s, but the
if you've done it with 3 or more times with us, it jumps you to the 75.
The alliance members are the foundation of the channel. Bless God. All right, so this is so we were going to listen to the song 2 nights ago, but the whole thing, I couldn't get the translation right, and I didn't want to just, you know how we do, we have a lyrical breakdown, so we had to get the actual lyrics so we could give a meaningful response, because we want to respect the band, we want to respect the alliance members who put it together, and so I had to find the lyrics first so that we could give a meaningful review, because it's important. That's what people expect.
Mad respect going around.
They don't respect, you know, willy-nilly. You know, people just mail it in. We don't do mail-in reviews here. We do the real deal. All right, let's go.
Yep. Okay, ready?
Yep.
And go.
We're going to put the lyrics in the description for you to follow along. Oh, it's my tremolo picking. Yes, picking. You know, on firesides, people always ask me what's your favorite genre of metal or whatever, and I always say, oddly enough, it's black metal. Because I'm a sucker for tremolo picking, and I also like the atmospherics. I don't think anybody does tremolo in the black metal context better than Magua, and I don't think anybody does atmosphere in black metal at the level of Batushka. But these guys are great.
This one was like, it just had such an emotional,
extremely emotional song.
Yeah.
I wrote this song called "Survivor's Guilt," which I've never shared with anybody. I've never shared it with you either. One of these days I might. But this definitely looked like Survivor's Guilt.
Oh, yeah.
You seem to be very affected by the song.
It was, I'm like actually holding back crying about it. It was like, the sound of it was, it just, even if you didn't have the lyrics, you understood that there was something like really sad, kind of like soul drawing out of you sort of feel. And then when I read the lyrics, it was like, it was next level. Because to me, you know, he's talking about a battle where everybody died, but he was the only survivor. But then it kind of switches partway through, and he's not just talking about the literal battlefield, but then he starts talking about the battlefield internally inside of him, and how he dies, and he doesn't, you know, he's standing alone on the battlefield of my soul. I am forever dead in eternity and eternity. It's just like, I don't know, it was just really sad. And the way that it was worded, like, okay, when the sky, and this is translated, so that means this was significantly more beautiful in its original dialect.
But this is one of the reasons why I wanted it translated before we did the song.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid it was going to be something.
Yeah.
You imagine, like, oh, it sounded great, do a little 2-minute review, which no disrespect to channels that do, 10-minute reviews, but that's why I wanted. I'm like,
let's just focus on the music and just do it. You're like, nah, let's get the lyrics. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and we got a couple. Lyrics, like different ones, etc., etc.
Yeah. When the sky. What?
No. I'm. So you had one, and then I had one from. There was somebody that was messaging me, and okay, here's mine. It might be a little bit different. They might be exactly the same, but go ahead.
When the sky blackened, our brothers fell. I liked that part because it was like, maybe the sky literally blackened, or it was almost like showing that something bad was about to happen, to say that the sky blackened, and then it could be the feel of that day,
by the dying light of a bright winter day.
On a bright winter day.
Ooh, those first 4 lines, forget about it.
Their bodies succumbed to the blood-red snow, and over the fields far and wide the sorrow, I saw the war.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I really didn't realize how tragic the Bible was until, I had my own experiences with stuff. But, you'd be like, oh, in this battle, 5,000 guys fell, and it's just one little line.
Yeah.
But it's like 5,000 families are affected, whether they're Philistines or whatever. 5,000 families are affected.
Yeah.
Mothers, brothers are affected. Warriors, there's just the human cost of that stuff. Sometimes is I don't know. Sometimes it's a blessing and a curse, because I think if we really dwelt on the degree to which human beings are experiencing these types of tragedies, I don't think you'd get out of bed.
Yeah.
So I think at some level it's a gift of God, or a evolutionary adaptation, however you want to look at it, that kind of allows us to compartmentalize these things, and but at the same time, for people who've been in the middle of it, it's one of the very strange contradictions about war. It's like your goal is to make it home. And make sure that the other guy doesn't make it home.
Yeah. Like when you watch a movie and like they create a story in which you're rooting for a certain character.
Yeah.
And it can even be the bad guy. All of a sudden you're rooting for the bad guy, We're watching a certain show. These people are really bad. They kill a lot of people. And then it's like when something bad happens to one of them, you're like, well, I hope they survive. But they're a bad guy. Like, what they're doing is really terrible. And so when...
Yeah, we're rooting for a bad guy right now.
Right.
in the show that we're watching.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But I think that's the whole thing about war too, is that war is made up of lots of people, and all of those people have a story. And if you saw the story of their life, most likely you would side with them. If you saw them start to, from their birth until their war, you would be on their side. I'm sure that there are some people that you'd be like, I hope that guy dies in the war. But I think most times, because human beings are so unique and so special, like, even, you know, you that's watching this, like, you might think that, oh my word, my life is not anything that anybody would root for me. You're wrong. Like, if people saw you start to finish, most people would be rooting for you.
That's so
true. They want you to survive. Oh, 100%. You've been going through a dark phase for a long time. Yeah, but they want you to survive.
100%.
You know, it's just, you don't have people peering into your life.
You could tell. We were in the fireside, and the big homie, he was talking about how he kicked the opium habit and things like that, and everybody's like, yeah! And you had another person struggling with depression. Everybody's like, yeah! And, you know, I'm proud of our community, because we're mixed community. We got Muslims, atheists, agnostics, Christians, I don't know, isms, whatever.
Yeah.
And like, everybody's just gonna come and either root for a person who's overcome something like that, or root for a person who's having a rough one, and people are there for him. So yeah, I think you're right. Like, if we, you know, and that's one of those, that what you just said is kind of the answer to like the whole whose side is God on question. Because Joshua goes up to God, and God shows up as a warrior in this vision, and Joshua says, "Are you a friend or a foe?" And God says, "I'm the captain of the Lord's host." He never answered the question, or are you on our side or against their side, or something like that. And so it's like, because God can see everybody's story, He's rooting for both sides.
Yep.
And He loves both sides.
Yep.
Even if on the one level one side has to lose because, you know, what, yada yada yada, He knows the stories of all those people. And so I always kind of, I don't know if the word is cringe, but, you know, during 9/11,
I feel like cringe is such a teenage word.
Bush was, you know, he came out and said, you're either with us, you're against us, you're with us, you're with the terrorists. And obviously at the time, I was like, yeah, that's right, you know, obviously. And, you know, I didn't understand the things that we had done, because, you know, I'm an American, we're the greatest country in the world, yada yada. I still believe that. But we've done a lot of shit to other countries to where, you know, one of them said, okay, enough's enough. And I lost somebody in 9/11, and I've lost friends because of 9/11. So I'm not justifying that in any way, shape, or form, but this simplistic idea that there's, you know, that God is on one team and not another, like, exclusively, you know, like, it's such a good point, where it just depends on who you're watching. And sometimes, like, when you're watching a show, you almost get to be God, because you get to see everything, and you know things that the other characters don't know, and yada yada yada, and you're able to look past the
imperfections of their personality
of the guy, because the author wants you to like the guy, so you're willing to just go, yeah, it's a little bit sociopathic.
Yeah. Or you see them having like this grumpy, like, sometimes when they like blow up or they get really angry, you're kind of like,
and you know the guy has to be stopped.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, yo, this guy's got to be stopped. He's hard, but I love him.
I know.
But it's like, he has got, and there is no way in the world that he can leave this show alive, because he's such a terrible person. But at the same time, you love him.
I don't want him to die.
And you know, having said that, like, gave me a new kind of insight on God. Like, that's how God deals in the world, and that's how you reconcile some of those contradictions. That was for Peter. That was for Peter.
How did you do that?
Huh? I don't want you to miss the subtle hint there, Peter. Damn. But yeah, it's a crazy contradiction about war. Is that your whole goal is to get home and make sure that the other guy doesn't go home.
Yeah.
But then if you're in a situation, now this is very rare where everybody dies and you make it out.
Yeah.
I know everybody's thinking about Lone Survivor. That was a 4-man team. So that's not the same thing. I mean, I'm looking at this like, you know, the old school, one group's over here, the other group's over here, and they just clash into each other, and then one group gets completely decimated. And then the question becomes,
how did you survive?
How the hell did you make it home?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a big thing. That's a very, very, very big thing. So, these are this is what it means to be a human being, I guess, in a sinful world. But the other thing about black metal is that, or just metal in general, is that the degree to which these guys, there's a certain type of aesthetic, especially, like, I saw a couple of pictures of these, and they're dark, and the face paint, and this and that, and it's like, they're projecting a certain type of, especially a person from an outside looking in, it's like, oh, these guys are satanic, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm not saying that they're not, I don't know where they are with that, but you would not assume, hey, if you listen to these guys in face paint, you're going to hear some of the most amazing poetry you've ever heard in your life. I mean, think about that. When the sky blackened, our brothers fell by the dying light on a bright winter day. Their bodies succumbed to the blood-red snow, and over the fields far and wide, the sorrow I saw the war. Amidst barren trees, I was the only survivor. There it is right there. How the hell did he survive? That's because when everybody was getting hacked to pieces, he was in the trees. Say what you want. Say, you know what I mean? Say what you want. I think there's just a point where people decide that they don't want to die.
What's a flail? My flail bloodstained?
I'm not really sure. When the person's flailing about, their arms are going all over the place. Like when a person's just flailing. So I don't really know how that works. I wonder if it's some
sort of a weapon. My flail bloodstained and my soul for eternity.
Look at that. A flail is a weapon consisting of a striking head attached to a handle by a flexible rope, strap, or chain. The chief tactical virtue of the flail was its capacity to strike around a defender's shield or parry.
So he was fighting. That's how his flail is bloodstained. And my soul for eternity scarred. Oh.
So he did fight.
Yep.
Yep.
I cry helplessly into the cold winter night. And I like this, where the mountains are, the fairies cry about the battle.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it was literally supposed to be translated fairies and elves in here, but I loved it because to me, it was the wonder and, like, there's a certain level of innocence that, I think that there's people that really believe in fairies, but I don't take that seriously, like, that I don't believe that there's really fairies, but the idea that there could be fairies, or the idea of those type of mythical sort of, and then the fairies are crying about the battle, and then in the end it says, but as the elves died and the fairies in the forest, with the fairies in the forest, I saw myself standing alone. To me, it was the ending of this, like, not like the ending of innocence, but kind of, I can't think of the word.
It's like, the end of their era, I think, though.
Well, yes, but the belief in something... like little kids believe in unicorns and they believe in magic and there's like this sort of wonder about the world, but when you see all your brothers fall in a single day and your heart is forever scarred, like the wonder of the world around you, something of that dies, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it could also be, again, one of those things where you had these, conquests that the old ways and the ways of their ancestors died out in that war, and that's what they were fighting for, and in that loss, that was also lost because, it's most, directly related to the Viking stuff, sure. But and the fairies thing to me is like, we believe in angels, right? So we believe that there are invisible beings who are powerful that intervene in human affairs and all the rest of it. So to me, I don't really care what you call the being. I think every culture has this concept that there are invisible beings who protect or attack people on the physical plane in the real world. So, I'm a lot less apt to say, oh, this is mythology, than maybe most people would. Because to me, it's like, what's the difference between a fairy and an angel? Like, if I'm an atheist and I hear you talking about an angel, to us, it's like, oh yeah, angels. But to them, it's the same thing. It just to be like, what's the difference between a fairy and a unicorn?
I'm not super familiar with what people believe about fairies because I just have
Tinkerbell. Yeah. Right. So I just think I was watching this thing on I forgot what it was. I don't know. It was like 4 or 5:30 in the morning, but it was about multiverses. Oh, it was somebody explaining the movie Donnie Darko, and they were talking about multiverses and things like that, and time travel and really interesting stuff. We'll talk about later. So we'll have one of our little late night drives and we can talk about stuff because it's very, very interesting. But, you know, it's like, when I listen to, okay, so elves, for example, right? And this review is going to go all over the place. Sorry, guys. But when I think about elves, okay, so I'm listening to a lot of Terrence McKenna. And it's just factual that a lot of these people, when they're in the throes of their DMT and their ayahuasca sessions, they go up into space, which scripturally would be the second heaven, and they run into machine elves. Joe Rogan talks about it, Terrence McKenna talks about it, McKenna's brother talks about it. Mad people, I'm talking about Sam Harris. I don't know if Sam Harris explicitly said so, but so there's lots of people who are extremely, if you listen to 20 minutes of Terrence McKenna, you will know immediately that this guy was probably one of the most well-read individuals in the Western world in the last 100 years. Him and Bertrand Russell, and I'm going to give the edge to Bertrand Russell, obviously. But that's just because I like Bertrand Russell. It's my favorite. Before I went into the Village, Bertrand Russell was one of my favorite atheists because he was my favorite atheist. Now it's Ian. But he was tormented by his atheism, and I loved him for it. Because his honesty. And he doesn't do the little silly bullshit that modern neo-atheists do. Anyway, but so as the elves, so they're going up and they see these machine elves. They do, and they meet the lady, the blue lady, and da-da-da-da. And so then you start, you know, McKenna was a little bit influenced by Jung, and so he was like, well, we have a archetypical understanding of what elves are. And you know, they're always giving stuff to him. Did you look at this? Did you look at this? And Joe Rogan, same thing. And so then, you know, McKenna expands that to think about elves in Western culture. You know, who is making all the presents for Santa Claus? It's the elves. So the space that they occupy in the Western mind is that these are small, mischievous people, but they're giving gifts. Their job is to give gifts. So when they're in this, you're in this kind of world, in this zone in ayahuasca, and you're in the second heaven, sure enough, here you have these elves, and they give you gifts. And
are they mischievous?
Well, they jump into your body, which is really interesting because he basically said they jump into your body, and his whole goal was to try to keep them in his body. And the way that he sounds is very, very interesting when he talks. Go listen to Terrence McKenna.
Wait, is that the one that I said sounds like a demon?
Yeah. He's very serpentine in the way that he speaks. But it's very entrancing. Like I've got this thing on YouTube right here. It's 10 hours of Terrence McKenna straight. And I could listen to him for 10 hours straight if I didn't have, you know. So all I'm saying is I'm just not so quick to dismiss, you know. And, you know, McKenna is always kind of, I think the best answer probably came from his brother, where Joe Rogan says, is this real? Are these real beings that we're talking to? And the guy goes, well, you're experiencing them, so how could they not be real? And even if it's just in your head, it's really in your head, you know, yada yada. But Rogan is saying, do they have a separate ontological existence outside of a thinking mind? And McKenna won't answer that specific question. Or Rogan probably doesn't have he just never phrased it that way. We'll say it that way. So my point is that he probably meant elves metaphorically or whatever. But from my perspective on a worldview, it's still it's still a valid category of being, and you don't have to be a theist to believe that because you know there's you know. So I just went off on a tangent that's probably not relevant, but I just think that it's the impulse of human beings to say, because it says a fairy's cry, and the reason I think that that's important was because there was nobody to cry about the battle because the people at home hadn't figured out yet that everybody was dead. And I do think that there is this drive in the human being that we want the death of people that are important to us to be recognized. And when you're the only person that's left to cry for your friends, you can take solace in the idea that these other beings witnessed it and saw. You know, like there's a very important line that is in the Shawshank Redemption where it says there's two guys and they said so and so was here and then Red was here, and that's a very significant moment in the movie because these guys are prisoners, they've been dehumanized, they've been this, they've been that. And so it was important for them to say, I was here, you know, because I matter, because sometimes you're in societies that devalue certain classes of human beings and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So, damn, very, very good song. Very heavy.
I think that our village can understand that, like being in a group of people that can be like dehumanized. Like, I think that the metal community, that's part of what brings us together, is that we stand out sometimes from the crowd and people are not accepting of that. And I think that that's kind of somewhat of the camaraderie that goes on within the shows.
Yeah.
You know, especially even just the way that the metal community dresses makes them stand out as a group that's not completely accepted by other parts of society. Okay, so I wanted to say, where does it talk about the wind?
Right there. Everything subsided silently, my friend the wind, he mourns.
In pale moonlight, my face distorted, a mask of bitterness and of darkness, my once beloved soul condemned.
And I feel the cold of the night. I know about the frost of the inner self. And I, the witness of victory.
I, the victory. That I didn't understand, that ending part about the victory. Like, I understood the mask of bitterness, and I understood the frost of the inner self. I thought that was a beautiful way to put that.
Well, there was a victory. It just wasn't on his team. The other team won. Obviously.
But then he said, I, the victory.
Yeah, and then the very next thing that he talks about is, and again, there's a translation.
Unless they completely killed the other crew, and he was the only left standing one. So I, the witness of victory, I, the victor. He's the only survivor.
I think he's
from
using
both sides.
I don't think that's what happened. I think what he's saying is he witnessed their victory because they won, and he had victory himself because he made it home, because that's the goal of every soldier, is to make it home. So I think he's using victory ironically here. Which is, you know, you'd want one type of victory and then you look at the other type of victory, because sometimes there's some victories, they're called Pyrrhic victories, where it's like you won, but look at the cost that you had to pay to win.
Yeah.
And so I think he's talking, the first victory is an actual victory, and then the second victory is a Pyrrhic victory, where, hey, yeah, you made it, man, you made it home, and your family is going to be they're going to feel victorious, but he's got to live with the frost of the inner self because, you know, all of his friends are dead.
But I liked my friend the wind, he mourns in pale moonlight.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, it's so weird when I bring it up, but it was like my first real loss in life was we had a cat. And I friggin' love this cat. We had like smaller creatures die, and that bothered me. We had Dozy. Dozy bothered me. He was like a little gerbil, and he used to fall asleep. That's why we called him Dozy. He was always falling asleep. You'd be doing anything, and then there he was asleep. When he died, but I think the cat died first. But the cat was super significant to me because I love that cat, and I had let myself love that cat so much. And then when that cat didn't show up home one night. And I remember I used to go outside and the wind was blowing and it was at night, and I would be calling and calling and calling to the cat. And it was so emotional to me, and I felt it so deeply. I said to myself, I will never let this happen again. And the next time we got a cat, I didn't let myself get close to it like that. I liked the cat. I was great with the cat. I was never mean to animals. But I could not let myself love the cat. And sure enough, our friggin' neighbor killed that cat too. So it was like, I mean, he just, I didn't know it was the neighbor that was killing the cat. I ended up finding that out, you know, much later. But, you know, there was just too many, I didn't like the idea of loving with risk. I wanted control of it. So,
yeah.
Honestly, I don't think that I have ever loved that deeply or purely ever since. Like, I think that it's always like kind of like, well, something could go wrong here.
Yeah.
You know, and so I know that in comparison to people losing like human beings in their life and stuff, but the cat was super, super significant to me. And like, I used to talk to the cat, like because I had a lot of things that was bugging me when I was a kid and teenager and stuff. And so I would talk to the cat, tell the cat all my problems. So, and I think that that's part of.
So I'm Sayla's cat.
I guess so.
Mr. Vin.
So I think that, and I see a lot of people on our channel with like pets and stuff, and I'm like, I bet that's like their little buddy too, But anyway, that's just like a side thing. So I really, really like this song. It was emotional, beautifully written. Like I said, I mean, this is the English translation, and it was beautiful. So I can't imagine. I mean, the word is, I don't know, Seelenland doesn't really even sound that, like, it looks like you can make, no, to me,
it sounds mega poetic.
Seelenland, it looks like, well, you're putting that accent, but just say it out. It sounds like it could be like, okay, so when we enter Disney over there at Seelenland, you can go over there, you know what I mean?
Seelenland sounds very beautiful.
But when it said Land of Souls, I said Land of Souls, oh, okay. And so I'm just saying, this in its original German dialect must be much more beautiful than what we've read. So this is a, ooh.
It's a 9.8 for me.
Ah.
Deep song.
This is a 9.9 for me.
Good musicianship.
Yep, I really
strong.
Really like this
Look,
one.
they requested this on 30 April. That's Orion's birthday. Or it was due.
It was due. But thank you for announcing that, babe.
And with that, we're off. We're out.
Sorry, Al.
Gone.